Hello and welcome to the ManageIQ Sprint 153 review. This was a regular 2-week sprint. Hold on. There we go. As usual, I'll provide the overview. Harpreet will update us on the UI, Adam on the providers, Jovi on the platform, and Alberto on the API. This sprint 153, we're starting to return to numbers that we saw in 150. 152 was a 4-week sprint, just for comparison, so you should probably have those numbers if you kind of want to see the pace of things. So 153, we're starting to get back on our regular pace, as I expected. In terms of the spread of the pull requests merged, 32 were bugs, 28 enhancements, 21 refactorings, and the rest all over the place. So pretty healthy spread, roughly a 1-to-1 correlation between bugs and enhancements. With that, I turn it over to Harpreet.
Thank you, Oleg. Hello, everyone. Total of 25 PRs were merged in UI repos. There were 3 enhancements, 9 bug fixes. Majority of bug fixes were related to fixes in the tests. And for some other bug fixes, infinite rendering of asynchronous dropdowns in provider forms was fixed. And in service UI, an issue was fixed with check all checkbox on my orders list. Next slide, please, for enhancements. Under storage, block storage, a new submenu to display list of host initiators, also known as physical storage hosts, has been added along with their summary screens, as you can see them here. Next slide, please. In order to support direct linking of objects, we have started de-explorizing the Explorer style screens. In past, we did this on few other screens like chargeback and configuration management. And currently, we have work in progress to do the same for control related screens. During this sprint, we did we de-explorized Policy Profiles Explorer, and now those can be accessed using direct links. As you can see in the before screenshot, there was a tree on the left to navigate through these elements, but with the new upgrade of the screen, there's no tree on the left. Now the policy profile is a flat list view like other list view screens, and now this screen has ability to sort records and also has paging support. And on the new screen, we also have checkboxes on list view to perform certain actions from list itself on selected objects. Previously, the screen only had a add new profile button. Next slide, please. Here I have some sample of direct URLs for policy profile screens, and that's all I have for the UI. Over to Adam.
Thanks, Harpreet. So for providers, we fixed a core smart state transition issue that was causing Rev smart state to fail. Essentially, it was never transitioning from the scanning state to the processing state, so it read the disk and then it didn't do anything with it. So this was noticed by a community user that got reported, and then we tracked it down and fixed it in the core VM scan class. We also continued on the effort of making core more pluggable. Jason moved out all of the loggers from the libvmdb loggers class into their respective plugin engines, and then we looped through all of those plugins to initialize and update config on all the loggers. So now if you want to bring your own logger, you can do that only in your plugin. You don't have to make a PR to core to add that logger, which is nice. As Harpreet mentioned, AutoSD added host initiators, which is essentially predefined definitions of how hosts or consumers are able to connect to that physical storage. It's important to allow other VMs and physical hosts to be able to connect to the storage, to those ones by using those predefined configurations. Next slide. On the OpenStack side, a community user was looking to implement some feature for the Swift manager. This was only defined in core, and it used the OpenStack parent manager for all of its connections. So even though it didn't look like it was dependent on the OpenStack Cloud Manager, it actually was. It couldn't do anything without a parent manager. So we decided to make that more obvious, and we moved the Swift Manager into the OpenStack plugin so that it's easier to see what connections it's using. And so that opened up the possibility for him to implement that feature in the OpenStack plugin as opposed to in Core, which wouldn't make much sense. We also added this feature, the feature for creating network routers in the ongoing journey of making the UI forms more pluggable. And we also moved the OpenStack environment builder out of Core and into the OpenStack plugin. On the VMware side, we fixed an issue where if the operations worker connection got restarted, it wasn't being restarted with the monitor updates thread. So essentially, it would build the cache the first time and then never update it after the fact. This is due to the fact that the connection has some initialization options that were set when the worker comes up, but they weren't being passed in when the connection got recreated. So we fixed that. And Lucy added support for retirement of deployed VMs from deployed OVF templates. So really just enhancing that whole feature there. Be more on par with standard provisioning. And that's it for providers. Next slide.
Yes. So, there were 29 thanks, Adam. I'm sorry. Little sound. There were 29 PRs merged in the platform space. Much of them are uninteresting, as often is the case in the platform space for just core updates. But there were 3 enhancements that were a little more noteworthy. Keenan made one to ensure JSON data is transferred properly by the React code. That'll help in the UI space. Brandon enhanced the DK installation of VMware Virtual Disk deployment installation process. And the big one is Nick L. wrapped up all the heavy lifting to upgrade ManageIQ to Rails 6. And I listed all the build improvements just for those who are interested, because Satoli and Brandon contributed quite a few of those. And that's it for the noteworthy PRs in the platform space. On to Alberto in the API.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so for the API, we had 4 enhancements this sprint. First one here by David H. This is where we needed to return the DDF schema for cloud volumes. That's provider specific, for that provider's cloud volume subclass. So it's the standard options API volumes, but if you specify the provider ID via the EMS ID parameter, you'll get that form schema underneath the data section for the options. Next slide. Okay, Lucy did an enhancement for exposing the event definition set. So that's a new API endpoint that accesses the MIQ event definition set, accessing that model and resources. So standard, get method here for the model for an individual resource, also supporting the bulk query action with a post. And we also exposed the events subcollection, getting the events for a particular event definition set. Next slide. Okay, Lucy also updated the floating IP. We were able to query before, but she added the ability to create, update, and delete. So just going through the actions here. So the standard, post on the API floating IPs, either the standard payload or with the create action signature. For edits, the post edit action, as well as the put and patch methods. And we also support the bulk edit with the post on that endpoint. And it deletes the delete action as well as the delete method, and also supporting the bulk action delete. Next slide. Okay, and Nick L. enhanced the results subcollection so we can delete them, showing here the HTTP delete method, as well as being able to do the same with the subcollection resource for a particular report. So API reports, the report ID, results, and that particular result ID, delete action, as well as the post action delete. And that's it for the API. Next slide.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for presenting here. The next sprint will be in 2 weeks, as always, as usual, I should say, on February 3rd. And thank you to all the contributors, all the presenters, everyone, for making this sprint possible. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks.